Are we ready? Well, according to my watch, it is 1 o'clock, so I would like to welcome everybody to our meeting today, February 28th, CCWD. Would you please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Rebecca, would you please call a roll?
Director Cicada? Here. Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Underhill?
Here.
President Thomas?
I am here.
And Director Radaman is absent today.
Okay. Going on to item number 2, public comments. At this time, we entertain public comments for any item that is not on the agenda. The public is encouraged to bring items to the board if they wish for future consideration for future agenda items. But if you want to talk today on something that's not on the agenda, you have 10 minutes to
10 minutes?
10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Anyway, however long it takes. Anyone showing interest in talking on public comment? Okay, I guess no hands raised on the screen. All right, moving on to item number 3, consent agenda, report on the monthly investment transactions.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for acceptance of the consent items or item. Would you please poll the board?
Director Cicada?
Comment.
Typically on the consent calendar, it's only a subject of discussion if somebody pulls it, if a board member pulls it.
Can we give them a-
We attended a Calco Fire Board meeting that are under the same Brown Act requirements as they understand it. And in their consent agenda, it says that member of the public, member of the board, staff can bring up items before the vote is concluded. You can certainly have a motion and a second, but before the vote is concluded, there was an opportunity for public comment. If you all are under different rules, then I need to be corrected.
So as far as pooling items, that is up to the board, but as far as commenting, public can comment on items on the consent agenda.
All right, do you have a comment on the consent agenda?
It's difficult to figure out how the flows, investments, et cetera, are going to reduce our exposure to reducing our debt ratio. Is there any way that somehow in consent agendas or items that affect the key items that we're trying to correct with this new rate case somehow be shared? If it's not possible, it's not possible. If it's a lot of work because staff is overloaded, that's another issue. But it's difficult to see how we're making progress on some of the things that were identified as key drivers for the high rates that we're paying.
Can we bring it to the finance committee and let's see if we can't entertain something along those lines? I mean, we may not, can we do it for the meeting tomorrow? It'll have to be the next meeting.
Not tomorrow, but we can agendize it for a future meeting, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's just. Okay, next month.
Okay, please poll the board on this item.
Okay, Director Cicada?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Underhill?
Yeah.
President Thomas?
Yes. All right, under new business, item number 4A, we have a presentation of a resolution honoring Dylan Cuneo and the retirement of his truck radio number. And Damon, do you have a report on this?
Yes, it's my pleasure to read this resolution. Take these off. Whereas Dylan Cuneo faithfully served as an employee of the Calaveras County Water District for 18 years. And whereas Dylan started his career at CCWD as a summer intern at the age of 16 years old and was hired as a full-time employee working as a maintenance worker in 2005, and eventually moved to the construction crew in 2019. And whereas during Dylan's time with CCWD, he understood in so many ways that actions speak louder than words, and earned the respect of his CCWD family through hard work and effort. And whereas he could see the worth and beauty of something often when others did not. An old pump station, a beat up work truck, a sickly little house plant, a friend, or a coworker going through a tough time. And whereas Dylan started his career as a young man, but grew into much more, a leader, a teacher, a mentor, a friend. And whereas Dylan's memory will not fade, and he will forever be remembered at CCWD and held in the highest regard. And now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of Directors of the Calaveras County Water District and all coworkers hereby retire Dylan Cuneo's truck radio number 119 and will forever honor him day in, day out for years to come.
I'll move for acceptance, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this. We have a public comment on this item, please.
If I could just start off, but I'd really encourage anybody that wants to say something to please feel free. It's really hard for any of us to talk about, but Dylan's part of the heart of this place, and he always will be, and we'll make sure that happens. So thank you, Mitzi and Tina, for being here. It really means a lot that you're here.
Really is great to see all the staff here to pay tribute to them. I mean, our staff, to a person throughout the whole bunch, are just the best people. We're very lucky to have you all. I know I speak for the board, they can speak for themselves, but we appreciate each and every one of you. We know how hard you work and what you sacrifice and the stuff you have to go through sometimes because of us. So we thank you for that. But anyway, we appreciate everything that you all do, and Dylan especially. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I?
Certainly.
yeah. I just, the family and all of the staff knows exactly how I feel, and I'm keeping White Pines Park in for Dylan. And what I want to say is thank you so much to the family for loaning us Dylan. Now, that's what you did. That you just loaned him to us. You loaned him to us, and yes, we did raise him, and I hope, and I know that you were proud of him, and and you just say the name Dylan, and everybody's heart just beats a little bit harder, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate your coming, and you'll be hearing from us forever.
Any further comments? Okay, would you please poll the board on this item?
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
President Thomas.
Very, very sadly, yes. So it's good.
Take a short break here.
Sure.
I'm just assuming everyone's going to go back to work, not listen to our boring meeting. So can we take 5 minutes?
Sure. I think there's some refreshments or something here. You
Oh, is there?
want
I don't know what you
to
guys
break
plan.
into those?
Is that what you
Just
have
take
planned?
a
Oh, well,
take a break. Anybody want to take a picture?
you're in charge. Didn't say
Yeah.
something.
How about a picture with his mom or something?
Hey, Mitzi.
Assuming that's it.
And I kind of, so kind of in
Yeah.
consideration of who Dylan was, his mom considered cookies for us.
You guys want to?
Sure.
Stay up there.
I could be with staff. I could.
Actually, it's staff.
I would think it.
You guys.
Yeah. Take a picture with the staff worked with it.
You guys stay up there and staff goes to the front.
Yeah, we'll just, oh, you want us to stand or sit?
We're all got some.
That's beautiful.
Have a good,
Very proud of you. Don't worry about it, don't worry.
Go for it. So.
Yes.
We gotta get in here to.
we're gonna have to stand on a box.
Tippy toes.
Handshake. That's you, then we'll need to leave.
That stands in front of me and then.
Come over here. Stay in a good spot.
That's right.
Yeah. I.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Okay, going on to, let's see, 4B, 4C, and 4D, I think have been moved to our next agenda. Is that correct? Okay,
But it's going to the finance committee first.
Yeah, we'll
That-
discuss it at finance committee tomorrow and then also the next board meeting on the 13th.
yeah, just for clarification, we had some audited financial statements, and a management letter and the mid-year, the operating capital improvements and program budgets. And the agendas came out a little late, and I personally, I felt like that I didn't have time. It didn't come out late. It's just the postal service didn't find me in time. So
There's a lot to look over.
there's a lot of stuff here. 80 pages is more than I could do in one session or one evening. But anyway, all that said, we're going to be discussing that at the next meeting on the 13th.
And usually it goes to the finance
Yes.
committee meeting first, but because it was rescheduled, we just got it out of sync, I think. Now we're
Okay.
back.
All right.
Is there, I mean, this is an annual report. Is there a deadline that we're?
No, there's no deadline. I mean, we're past the time of year when we normally have these things done, but I completely agree that it's something that we need to make sure everybody has adequate time to review. So bringing it back on the 13th makes sense.
Okay, then moving on to item 5, reports. We have a general manager's report, first of all.
This is going fast. I usually have more time to think.
We should discuss some.
So a few updates and then some for looking forward to the next agenda a little bit too. I think the March 13th meeting is going to be a bit of a doozy. But real quick, I just want to provide I do periodically provide updates on our what is it, a mission, our ongoing effort to secure federal funding through the Army Corps for Copper Cove wastewater treatment plant. We're meeting with the Army Corps regularly, weekly, if not more than weekly, both on processing the funds that are available now and moving the project through the Army Corps process, and then also securing additional funds in the next federal fiscal year. So that's kind of hot and heavy right now. The appropriations requests from Senator Butler and Senator Padillas are out, and so we're working on those forms with Mia and coordinating with the Corps on that so that they're supporting our future funding requests.
Where are we at with how much we've been given versus allocated? What's the term?
Yeah, so we just a quick background on that. We started with a $3 million authorization. We have successfully appropriated 2 million
That's
in the last two federal fiscal years. We were also successful in increasing the authorization from 3 million to 13.28 million. And we're hoping for a budget appropriation this year of 11.2 million to take us up almost to the top of our current authorization. Here we are at the end of February, and the federal government still doesn't have a budget for this fiscal year, which is remarkable, but we're almost halfway into the fiscal year. But we're still very optimistic that we will get that appropriation. That's a large appropriation request for this program. It sounds small in the scope of the federal budget, but for Section 219, it's actually a significant request. But we're optimistic that we will get it. And then we also have a request in through this year's WRDA to increase the authorization again from 13.28 to 16.3 million because of the project cost has gone up. So we're optimistic that that will move forward, and then we're going to request the other 3.1 million in for fiscal year 25. We're in the awkward position of having to develop fiscal year 25 budget requests, even though we don't have fiscal year 24's budget yet. But we're hoping in the next couple of days, we'll have some news on that, at least the appropriations bills that fund the core. We're hoping we will actually have some movement on that in the next few days.
Okay, so excuse me, we're part of the holdup back in Washington right now, right?
Well, it's certainly not our fault.
Well, no.
And we've tried to, well, it does directly affect.
That's it.
Right. Our budget appropriation request is for fiscal year 24, and that is held up in.
Aren't they have another impasse where they're looking at a shutdown?
They're
here in the
looking at
next few
another
days?
shutdown. Yeah, but
There's a
there is optimism that they'll at least get the
Monday.
appropriations package that affects the Corps' budget through. I don't know if they'll get all the appropriations bills through or not, but we're hoping that we have some good news on that front soon. And then we're also having to make some adjustments to the project itself because of the delay of the Army Corps process. Some of the work can't wait, unfortunately, until the Corps can deliver. And so we're having to rethink how we're going to phase this project, and some of it we're probably going to have to move forward on our own and outside of the core process, but we can't delay any further. We've delayed as long as we can out there, so we'll be bringing that to the engineering committee for further discussion.
So the thought would be that anything that we any funds we have to expend before we get approval, that they'll be reimbursed, or hopefully.
Unfortunately, probably, we hope so. We're asking and we're going to push for that, but probably not. So we'll get into that in more detail in the engineering committee meeting. Had a good meeting with the county CEO recently, both on water resources planning, the SB 552 drought task force that the county has to prop up, and the drought contingency planning that they have to do. We want to be in a partnership role with them on that, considering it's kind of more of our area of expertise, and we think we can help the county comply with the SB 552 requirements. And so we've had some good discussions with them on that, and we have we're going to have probably a 2x2 with 2 of our directors and 2 supervisors coming up here soon to discuss that and other topics as well.
Isn't that just basically our water master plan, but with a county stamp on it, or?
It's a little bit of a different focus. So the plan that the county is required to put forward is drought contingency planning for small water systems, which are considered 5 to 14 connections, I think.
Private.
And then individual wells as well. So they need to have a plan in place a contingency plan, which includes looking at the surrounding areas of the smalls. And I think there's 30 of them in Calaveras County. There's a lot of those just small water systems that serve one street or, one small group of houses.
Did you say 30?
Yeah, I think it's around 30. And, but also looking at the surrounding areas, because part of the contingency plan might be, well, what's the next closest water agency, whether it's CCWD or one of the other water purveyors in the county? That might be part of the plan for part of that plan. And so we want to make sure we're involved in that planning process. And there's funds available for that. So we're going to help the county, you know, get some technical.
Do they have to evaluate the areas outside of our service area? That they, you know, for instance, say in Burson, if they on the county general plan calls for multifamily residential, is that something that they have to account for in this? How to?
Not,
It's
I don't
their
think in this plan, but yes, in their land use planning, or in any future specific plan or subdivision plan that comes forward, they will have to do a water verification as a part of
But
that.
that's not part of this water resilience.
I don't think that would be a part of this, although I could see how that, you know, it might help inform those efforts as well. So we're working with the county on that. The good news, and we'll be bringing this on March 13th as well, as we got a really good bid opening from the Jenny Lind Data B project. We had 12 contractors that all came in very close to each other, which I think is a good sign. I think our engineering team deserves a lot of credit for that. And they came in under what our engineer's estimate was. So very positive development on that front. And we're in the process of reviewing the bids, but I think we'll be ready for the March 13th board meeting.
Excuse me, you did mention that 2 board members were going to be part of that.
2 by 2.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Mhm.
So Jenny Lind Data B, that's a project that you've all heard about for many years, and it'll we'll finally be getting that out to awarding a construction contract on that here soon. We had External Relations Committee meeting here yesterday that I think went really well. Appreciate Francisco and his partners in participating in that meeting. It ended up being, I think, a 4-hour meeting, but it was a productive discussion, and I think we have some positive follow-up to that meeting. So we'll be bringing some stuff back possibly at that March 13th meeting as well. Yeah, so it was a good discussion. And then we have Finance Committee tomorrow. So back to back here at the district this week, where we will dive in on the mid-year budget review and the audit, and then bring that back to the board on the 13th as well. We also, and then we have Engineering Committee next week that is also, I think, going to be a pretty hefty agenda. So
What day did we decide on that?
I think we're Wednesday. Yeah, so for any public that are interested, I'm glad you asked that question, because we had to shift the date from Tuesday to Wednesday. So we're now doing Engineering Committee Wednesday the 6th at 1, is that right?
Rebecca, are you going to resend the calendar? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so we'll post that, but that should be a good one. We had a camera meeting here last week. And some good discussions with that group as always. And I think our next camera meeting will be an interesting one about the future of that organization. So I'll keep you posted on that. We've been kudos to the engineering team and Jared and our ops managers as well, keeping in really close contact with the Poker Flat HOA about construction impacts of the lift station project, and they will be significant this summer. We had hoped initially to time that work so that we would avoid the busy season and supply chain delays from the electrical subcontractor pushed us right into the middle of the summer. So, but we've been in close contact with the HOA, and we'll be attending their meetings and just working very closely with the HOA on construction impacts over the summer. But we'll have 2 major lift station projects going on over the course of the summer in Copper this coming summer. I've had a couple of good UPUD meetings recently. Well, one was with that Highway 4 group, so the City of Angels, Utica, UPUD, and CCWD. Positive discussions about collaborative planning, kind of a master planning water supply effort for that Highway 4 corridor. And I think that's going in a very good direction. And I think what we're going to do shortly here is bring it back to each of the boards of those agencies to make sure that we're, because we want to make sure the boards are informed and that there's support from each of the boards for the work effort. The joint JPA meeting of those Utica agencies last month, where the 5 council members from the city and the 5 directors from UPUD all held a meeting together. And there were positive, expressions of support for the discussions that we're having and for continuing to partner with CCWD. Really positive, comments were made about CCWD in that meeting. And so I think it's really important for us to continue to build on that momentum and build those relationships and move this discussion forward. I know
And who's our representation?
right now that's me. Yeah. But that I think is going to expand here pretty soon because we're talking about, some joint grant applications that's going to require engineering and operations. Oh, actually, Damon attended one of those meetings as well recently, slightly different focus, but looking at potential FEMA funding applications where we can go in and, be a stronger applicant as we're doing it together. So I think really positive discussions and there'll be more to come on that as well. And then speaking of the Utica agencies, Utica has circulated a draft exemption from FERC. So they would essentially, in the proposal, they would surrender both of their FERC licenses and get an exemption from FERC jurisdiction going forward. It's a heavy lift. It was a heavy lift just to even to get to this point. The draft documents, the draft applications, I think are well done. They put a huge amount of work into it just to get to this point where they release those drafts. They've had a lot of meetings with stakeholders, including us. So we're reviewing that right now, and I would expect to have a comment letter back before the board at the meeting on the 13th as well on that effort.
When you said you have a comment letter back before the board, that'll be like in the form, we'll be signing a resolution in support of their efforts?
Yeah, it would most likely be, a draft or a comment letter and then a resolution of support from the board. It makes the comment letter stronger if it comes from the board rather than just having it signed by me. Another item I would anticipate having here on the 13th, as we've talked about many times before, we're very short staffed in our admin services department. Our admin services team deserves a ton of credit for all the extra work that they've had to do to cover for vacancies, extended vacancies in some cases. And Kelly's leading that team, and they've all just been fantastic at stepping up. The good news is we have 2 accountants starting on Friday. They're both starting on the same day. So help is on the way. We're excited about both of them. But we're also up against budget development for next fiscal year, including the prospect of creating a 3rd enterprise fund for the first time, a hydropower enterprise fund, which will make budget development this year more challenging even than it normally is. And then also Tyler Finance implementation at the same time. That's a lot, even with those 2 new accountants. So we've been talking to accounting firms that offer outside services for districts like us and had some really productive discussions on that front. And so I think we're going to need some outside help to bridge the period of time between when Jeff's back full time and our accountants are up to speed but make sure we are doing what we need to do on all of those fronts during the next few months. Yes.
Yeah, because then we're talking about the learning curve, because if you get outside help, and then they're coming in at the same time of our 2 new hires, we have 4 people who have to learn the job.
Yeah, I think the outside help, we could break it off as fairly discrete chunks with deliverables that we know that they can deliver on, and that will be part of the selection criteria for those folks. So it's not as in depth of a training effort for them. But yeah, for the new accountants, that's one of the challenges we have right now is not having any accounting staff other than, I should acknowledge here, Patty Christensen, who has just been phenomenal as she always is in stepping in to help us again. But we only have her a limited amount of time, and so
Right.
we need her to continue focusing on the day-to-day accounting tasks rather than training new accountants. And so we're working on an onboarding and training program for those 2 new accountants. Under these circumstances is challenging, but we've got a plan in place for that. And then also, I think this new, getting some outside help will make sure we're not missing anything over the next few months, which are going to be pretty critical.
Well, this is a new year for Patty, right? Isn't that the way it works with,
Yeah.
Retirement?
But we also, we just want to
we want
respect
to respect her,
any boundaries there. So
we don't
yeah,
want to
we're-
overwork her.
Right.
Yeah.
She's been
Mhm.
amazing. So I'd anticipate that coming back. And then as a part of that, though, we're already, internally working on department budgets, capital improvement program update. All of that will feed into the budget process, obviously. So that's work that we're already doing internally. I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Oh, did you want to mention anything specifically about that slurry line discussion we had, or is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the other, I think I started off by saying there were a couple of discussions with UPUD. Yeah, thank you, President Thomas. Yeah, so the other one was a discussion that Director Underhill and President Thomas attended along with 2 directors from UPUD to revisit the question of possibly serving ag customers through the slurry line within their service area. So that's something we've discussed with them in the past. I think they're open to it. It's a question of how we do it. There's different ways we can get there. And we have to be a little bit cautious about that. But I thought it was a really productive meeting. So we also talked about some of the other planning efforts that we're doing. And I think, appreciate the directors being there because that just helps. It really helps the process. It really helps the relationships if directors are on the same page from each of the agencies. So I thought that was a really productive meeting.
How much water can be allocated to the slurry line for these customers?
Not much. Yeah, it's a it's a really great piece of infrastructure, and the history of it is fascinating. But it's pretty limited. We've got a 7-inch pipe in the ground there, so only
1,000 acre feet.
1,000 acre feet. If we were to run 24/7, 365, and that's not that's not how irrigators operate, right? So during the irrigation season, even less than that, unless they have some ability to store some water. So there's definitely some limitations on the infrastructure, but to the extent we can put water to productive use and there's irrigators that need the water, I think we're going to try to meet that demand.
If the infrastructure could handle it, how much can we be taking out of? It comes from Stanislaus, right?
It's the water right is only for 1,000 acre feet a
Okay,
year,
so
but that's also the limit of what the infrastructure could handle. Yeah.
There was a brief mention of we could use it for irrigation or we could use it for a small mini hydro or something. Is there any place along the alignment of that slurry line that we could put a small hydro and discharge back into the canal?
Oh, interesting. Back into the canal. Yeah. It crosses the ditch twice. Once right off of Murphy's Grade Road and then once at Ross Reservoir. Not a ton of head pressure at those locations. The really valuable site would be right here at the cement plant where there's 960 PSI by the time it gets down here. But there's a lot of regulatory challenges to get there. It's an that's a different watershed. So even in the ditch, it would be a different watershed. Actually, not necessarily if it discharges back into the ditch. it'll end up back in Maloney's. This would be a different watershed. You know, the costs of developing that kind of a project are substantial, but
Yeah, but we are in the hydropower business.
that's right. Yeah.
Would that be a
Um,
FERC licensing
That
project?
that would most likely qualify for an exemption. So it would be a very small hydro. And it would be for, the main purpose of the infrastructure is water supply, not hydro generation, which is one of the criteria for their exemptions. So if you're just adding generation to water supply infrastructure, and it is small hydro, then that's where the exemption can come into play. This would definitely meet those criteria.
Could it be a dedicated facility to charge all our new electric vehicles?
I was gonna say,
Yeah, if
It would
if we
probably,
Park them all down there.
it honestly would probably be too small for that. even.
Yeah.
I mean, what would the electricity be used to or routed to?
Most likely, we would export to the grid and generate
Oh.
revenue that way. Yeah, it would probably be a remat project.
Arena.
If we were
The real value of that project is still within the landscape that it runs through. I mean, if more people can take water off that and improve their property and
Yeah.
develop crops and,
Best case scenario is, yeah, we're selling all the
Yeah, I
water
mean,
and
that's-
there's none left over for
Right.
generation.
imagine if Utica Water and Power could take water, half a mile in each direction, what that landscape would change completely,
Mhm. Yeah.
I've always said they should get out of the hydro business and start delivering water farther away. Be way better for the Calaveras County economy,
Well, if there was more water available, but there's a couple of customers that literally during the irrigation system would be taking all the water available. So,
Oh, and on the
On the
slurry.
slurry line,
Yeah.
not the Utica ditch,
Yeah.
though. But let's bring all that back, because that's, the planning effort that we're engaging in right now is consider, looking at all of that and, what is the most efficient way to serve these communities? And how do we put the water to the best possible use, the highest value use? So I think collaborating with those agencies on that effort, is going to be really valuable. We're also mindful of the fact that we're not the first group to try this collaborative planning effort, and it has failed many times before us. So we're trying to be proactive about that. I think that's why it helps to have the board members meeting, directly and building those relationships and building some trust, because we've seen this fail in the past. We want it to be successful this time.
yeah, the meeting that we had at the UPUD office was, I really liked I don't know, the vibe, I guess. I don't like that word particularly, but it felt good to, to have that interaction.
Yeah.
That engineer Hospital, he's a sharp cookie. He's pretty interesting fellow. Does that conclude your comments?
Yes.
Okay, Director Cicada, do you have any?
At the last meeting, did I report out on that I went to the District 2 Supervisors Town Hall candidate meeting?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Hmm.
Then I was gonna mention about if we wanted to have the chairs of committees report out on their committees. Michael, you just did it right now, so
I usually try to touch on it.
yeah, and I think it's fine the way that you did it. We could, and I just want to say that I did, I believe that we made some progress at the meeting yesterday. I know both Kellys delivered, in my opinion, some really good presentations. And I think one of them are going to be coming to us. One was on the Tyler portal. So that was pretty interesting. And I know we've been asking for that. So I think that'll be coming to the full board at some point.
Is
But
it,
it was
it
a
is
good
coming?
meeting. Yeah, it was a good
So
meeting.
it's
and-
live. The customer, the smart meter portal is now
Oh.
live. It's been, I think the words Kelly Richards used, been kind of a soft rollout, because we're still trying to work through some of the, I wouldn't call them bugs, but just making sure that
Sort
it
of.
functioned the way that we want it to function. And then we'll do some more outreach and education on that front, and probably bring a full demo to the full board. Probably not on the 13th because that agenda is looking pretty crowded, but we'll do that for the full board here soon.
Very good.
That's it.
That's it. Mr. Director Underhill.
Oh, okay. You didn't mention this. This was the watershed framework, water solutions network.
No, I didn't mention that. You're right.
This is the one where we, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Interesting developments there.
Maybe Kelly can give us a couple words.
We could actually agendize that because there is some interesting news coming out of the IRWM world. So we might want to just add that to a future agenda.
Okay,
I think that would be good.
I think it's worthwhile for us to do that. Ooh.
Can you come
Okay.
back from Hawaii to make that report next on the 13th?
And this is probably to Damon. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we have some radio safety nets. Have you ever heard of that? GMRS radios? Oh, well, I just wanted to know if you,
Into and talking to the president.
so is that one of my customers
But
mentioned?
generally what we do is we can dial into the frequency that all the emergency services are using in Calaveras County, and we can speak on that frequency.
Oh, I see. So this opens it up to everything.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit different than what we do. And we had, I want to say it was about a year ago, Jesse Hampton and our supervisor of the electrical department, Brian Crumpacker, met with Chief Johnson up in Ebbets Pass Fire to discuss radio coordination during emergencies.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, that was.
And so, yeah, so the general effort for the county is we will all kind of dive into one frequency as necessary. And then when say they prop up an emergency operations center during an emergency, we can all speak
Okay, so that was,
together in that regard and then jump out.
okay, all right.
But that is interesting. Something we could definitely look into. For sure.
Damon, before you step away, want to interject something here, a question. There used to be, perhaps it's still in service, but a repeater on the top of the mountain right up above my house up there at the former.
That one's no longer in service.
It's
That's right.
decommissioned.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Okay, well, pretty quiet up the hill, so,
You're about to get some weather.
well,
Yeah, so
come on, the sun is
I
shining.
know.
Tell me that.
Enjoy it while you can.
Right.
does that conclude your report?
Yep, it does conclude my report.
Your report?
Give us a little bit more
Her
weather. would you?
report concluded my report as well.
You haven't broken your streak. Okay, boy. I had an enjoyable day last week, touring the Copper Cove Water Treatment Plant, and learned probably more than I'll ever need to know about the mathematical intricacies of water treatment and down to the 0.00002 concentration. And oh, wait a minute, that wasn't right. It was 0.0003. So, but it was enjoyable. And
Please get that right because I will hear about it. If you don't, I'll get a phone call here.
Al Segala was there. Al, did you enjoy that tour? Why don't you stand up and tell us about it?
Thank you for the opportunity to tour that plant. It was very interesting. And I try to retain some of the information. When you get my age, it's not that easy to retain a lot of stuff. But one of the things that seem to be true, we seem to be spending a lot of money hauling sludge to other parts of California. How much money are we spending doing that? And what would be the cost of this, converting the sludge to flammable chips to be burnt for power generation? I don't know if that's been looked into, but it would be a good subject for the next agenda.
It's a great question. So we currently spend about $80,000 to $100,000 a year trucking solids from our plants to the closest landfill that'll accept them. The biomass plant that we're partnering with, that hopefully will start construction here before too long in West Point, will take them. And so that's one of the benefits of that project is we'll be trucking to West Point instead of trucking to Sassoon. And it'll save us a lot of money, just by shortening those truck trips.
To make our ratepayers happy.
I hope so.
plan.
Yeah. And it'll, create some, we get clean energy out of it instead of just dumping it at a landfill. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. See, I'm looking over March and I don't have any unusual meetings that I anticipate attending, but I do want to point out that back in January, I attended a meeting of the Board of Supervisors thinking that I was doing a good job being a cheerleader for CCWD, and our general manager said, "Oh, wait a minute, you can't bill for that meeting." And it turns out that if I had mentioned it in advance of going, then I could have been paid for it. So I think that we might need to do a little in-service training to find out what meetings that we are authorized to go to.
Just
And,
call me if you want.
you never go to anything anyway.
Let's do a policy review on an agenda coming up.
Yeah.
We could do that. Yeah, it'd be helpful
For the
for me
board
so that I
policy.
don't have to deny board members.
So I
That's
understand
not a position I
it has to
want
have
to be
a,
in.
has to
Right.
have a CCWDI on the agenda.
It would not necessarily, it has to be done basically with the approval or consent of the board. And so, making sure that if you are attending one of those meetings, that it's at least, we talk about it here at the board meeting and the board acknowledges that you're going to that meeting as a representative of CCWD, then it becomes a reimbursable meeting. But if not, it doesn't fall within the policy guidelines for reimbursement. And we, of course, have to be very careful about policy compliance. So
I would like to do a review of the board policy.
Yeah. So just to go because you think that that's,
So if an individual board member goes to another public agency's meeting and makes public comment without being sort of appointed by the board to represent the district in that meeting, that's not a reimbursable meeting. Does that make sense? So if you go to,
because,
Board of
and I
Supervisors.
understand, and I understand where you, because of the abuse that we went through, years ago, that we no longer do, but yeah.
so I'm cautious about that policy and making sure that we're within those guidelines.
Because if I wake up and I decide that I want to go to a meeting, I'm going to go to a meeting.
Right, which is great. You just might not get reimbursed for it.
We might want to give some attention to any and all meetings that we would get a call the day before that you want our attendance at a special meeting, and we attend that special meeting at your request and we don't get reimbursed for it. I need to better understand why that has come to pass, but we can clarify that in the future.
Yeah, I think it would depend on the meeting and the circumstances, but yeah, generally it has to be as a representative of the board. Which is not something I have the
Bring
authority.
that up.
Okay. Okay, well, that concludes
I
my,
actually do have one. I just want to ask Damon one thing.
Sure.
Damon, can I talk to you after the meeting? I just had I've got I guess it's a complaint, but it's from Wallace sewer plant. So before we leave today, I'd like to talk to you about it. A noise issue. All right, thanks.
noise issue?
Yeah, we're aware of it. We can talk about that.
All right.
Okay, reporting out on the next board meetings announcements. We have next meeting, as we've discussed, is March the 13th. And then Wednesday, March 27th, also both are regular board meetings. And now item,
I see something on the 13th. I forgot to tell you, I won't be here in person for the meeting on the 13th, but I will call in as an observer.
Okay. And we can talk prior to that meeting about, obviously finance committee tomorrow and then.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll go over a lot of the stuff on the 13th, so.
so there's no need to cancel the meeting then? So,
Heck, no. If you
okay.
guys want to reschedule it, I'd be okay with that.
Okay. All right. Item number 8 is closed session. We have 2 of them. One is a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision D2 of Government Code, section 54956.9. There are 3 potential cases. And then 8B, we have public employee performance evaluation, Government Code 54957, general manager. And we'll be reporting back after that closed session. I know. And so I'm compelled to ask for public comment on either of these closed session items. Crickets.
No comment.
No comment. So with that, this portion of the meeting is postponed until we come back after the closed session.
Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye, Damon.